Hi everyone, it's Sally from Strength Ambassadors and welcome to my video Q&A. I've got my coffee, so I'm ready to go. Let's get started. So first question is from UN on Facebook, and she asks, she says, lately I've noticed when I'm going heavier on bench press, my right shoulder pulls up and this results in a sore shoulder. Any tips or cues to prevent me from doing this? Yes, the best cue for shoulders in the bench press is to drive your shoulders back into the bench really hard. You do this throughout the lift, and when you push the bar up off your chest, think about driving your body away from the bar into the bench rather than thinking about pushing the bar away from you. So it's a slightly different psychology, but it works really well. Another thing I would do is just keep your elbows tucked in throughout the lift to minimise torque on the shoulder. So don't do the old sort of chicken wing benching, keep the elbows tucked in. As far as general strengthening of the shoulder goes, just make sure you're hitting the front and the back and the side of the shoulder. You know, a lot of people, when they do shoulder exercises, they do exercises that are very focused on the front delt and the side delt, and they forget about the rear. So do plenty of exercise that involves scapular retraction, pulling your shoulder blades back, because that's going to strengthen and stabilize your whole shoulder area. Okay, next question comes from Pam, also on Facebook. Pam says, I've been out from my 3 to 4 times a week strength training routine for over a week now with a minor illness. Could you give us some guidelines for returning to training after minor illness? Yes, I can. One thing I've noticed is that people always want to come back sooner than they should do, because most of the people that I come into contact with really love their training. They're very keen on it. And what happens is they come back a bit too early, hit the gym hard, and then they regress a bit and can even get ill again. So take your time. The thing is that in the great scheme of things, having one easy week isn't going to affect your progress. In fact, it could help it, because you're not going to be forcing your body to do too much too soon. So if you've had some kind of illness where you've had an infection that's left you a bit weak and a bit drained, have an easy week. Take the volume right down. You know, make sure you're eating and drinking well. If you've had some kind of illness that involves, you know, vomiting or diarrhea, then obviously you've got to give yourself a few days to kind of build your body back up again. Have an easy week, and then after that, you should be ready to go. Also, having the easy week, it's actually good after you've been ill to do a little bit of training, a little bit of activity to get your body back to normal. So you don't want to just sit around for 2 weeks or lie around for 2 weeks and then jump straight back into the gym and start, lifting your max. So take it easy, give yourself an easy week, and you should be fine. And I hope you feel better soon. Now, Pam has a second question, which was echoed by Kim. They're both asking the same thing, and this is a good one. Any guidelines related to strength training for ladies that are over 50? Pam says, I am tuning into my body and giving top priority to good form, but are there any other important guidelines for us 50 plus ladies? Well, first of all, Pam and Kim, well done for taking up strength training in your 50s. It's a fantastic idea. And to be honest, no, I don't have anything in particular that I would say to people in their 50s that I wouldn't say to people in their 40s or 30s. So same sort of thing for anyone starting out in strength training. Like you pointed out, Pam, listen to your body, because everyone's individual and everyone has different work capacity. So pay attention to that and give priority to good form as you've suggested, and just make sure that you're on a good progressive program. So you're making progress, you're adding weight or adding reps or whatever it is, and there's no reason why you shouldn't get really strong. In fact, to be honest, strength training becomes more important as you get older, especially if you're a woman and you're getting closer to that sort of perimenopause time. Most of you will know that around menopause your estrogen drops off quite dramatically, and this has an effect on your bones because estrogen just helps to make your bones stronger. And this is why a lot of old women can suffer from osteoporosis and brittle bones. So actually strength training is an excellent thing to do when you get into your 50s. So you should tell all your friends to start lifting weights too, because it's going to make your bones stronger. So good on you. Listen to your body, but other than that, just do what anyone else would be doing really, and you can get pretty strong in your 50s. So next up, question from Gina. Hi Gina. Gina says, I have been training with the same weights for some months now. What is the best way to know when you should up the weights? Good question, really good question. Because this is fundamental to strength training, and not everyone knows the answer. The short answer is increase the weights as often as you can, you know, because we're here to get strong, we're here to make progress. Now obviously you don't want to load up on an exercise that you can't perform properly, so here's the rule of thumb. Whatever sets and reps you're doing, so let's make it simple. Let's say you're doing a chest press for 3 sets of 10, okay? And let's say you're using the 5 kilo dumbbells. If you can do 3 sets of 10 reps with your 5 kilo dumbbells, and if you're doing, you know, good range of motion, so you're going all the way down and all the way up, you're not cheating and just doing half reps. If you're doing a full range of motion and you're able to do 3 sets of 10, then it's time to up the weight, because your body has adapted to doing that weight for that number of reps, you know, and the body adapts really, really quickly. We're talking about days, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe even quicker if you're right at the beginning of your strength journey. It really is that quick. So, you know, if you're not adapting within a couple of weeks as a beginner, then there's something awry. So once you can do your sets and reps with a weight, with good form, increase the weight. Now, a lot of people will run into the problem, especially on exercises, upper body exercises like bench press, that although they can do all of their sets and reps with the 5 kilos, when they go to the 6 kilos, they can barely move them. Or that you might even be in a gym where they go 5, 7.5, which is quite a big jump. So how do you cope when the jump in weight is too big? Well, the way to get around that one is to use rep ranges, and this is a tactic that I use in my free video training series, Strength Made Simple. Part of that video series is a beginner strength training program, and in that program I use the idea of a rep range to keep people making progress. So with a rep range, you take a rep range, let's say 5 to 8 reps, and you start off doing 5 reps with a particular weight, and then the next session you keep the weight the same, but you do an extra rep, so you do 6 reps for however many sets, and the session after that you do 7 reps, and so on up to 8 reps. And once you get to 8 reps, you go back to 5 again, but this time with a little bit more weight. So what that means is that you only increase the weight every 4 or 5 sessions. So you've got time to get strong at that weight, but you're increasing the reps every single session. And that's really important, because you need to try and progress in every session. Now, progression doesn't have to mean putting more weight on the bar. It could mean doing an extra rep. It could mean doing a greater range of motion. It could mean doing the rep more slowly, you know, a slower tempo, whatever it is. But there needs to be something to keep you progressing, because like I said before, the body adapts really, really quickly, and if you're not constantly changing and increasing the challenge, you're not getting any stronger. So Gina, to go back to what you told me, you said you've been training with the same weights for some months now. So based on what I've just said, you're probably already realizing that you need to be progressing yourself, because you probably haven't got any stronger in the last few months, and you probably haven't made that much progress. So now you know what to do. Next time you go in the gym, try and increase the weights on all of your exercises and find your new level. And then once you've done that, spend a few weeks just increasing the reps. And so you're progressing every session, and then try and up the weight again. And you'll find in 2 or 3 months that the amount that you're lifting is just going to go like that. And the results that you get will be so much better if you do this. So good luck with that, and nice to hear from you. Okay, next question. This is from Twitter. The question from Razine. Razine asks, what recommendation would you give for weightlifting volume in a week if someone took part in sports such as rugby or grappling? Now, I asked Razine to give me a bit more detail about what the guys are doing already. Basically, they're doing 4 days of grappling and 2 days of weightlifting. 1 day is snatch and press, the other day is clean and rows, with some sets and reps. So Razine, from what you've told me, I think at a sort of base default level, what you're doing already is right. It looks really good. You know, the rep ranges seem good. That kind of basic idea of weightlifting twice a week looks good. I like the way that you've split up the movements between the 2 days. So that all seems really, really good. What it's going to come down to is 2 things. Number one is the priority for a particular athlete. You know, because some athletes are going to be stronger than others, some athletes are going to be more powerful. There might be an athlete who, you know, that strength is a real weak point for him, so that needs to be really built up. And there might be another athlete for whom, you know, power's a really weak point for her, so she needs to work more on her power. So there's those individual differences. And the other thing is going to make a difference is the skill level of the athlete in the Olympic lifts themselves. Because you've got people doing snatches and cleans, which are quite high skill, especially if the athlete isn't primarily a weightlifter, they're from another sport. And so the more you can increase skill level, the more that those athletes are going to get out of those exercises. So I would say that with your athletes who are less skilled at the Olympic lifts, they would probably benefit from doing more volume. You know, because first of all, if they're less skilled at the Olympic lifts, they're not going to be lifting as much weight in those lifts. So they're going to be doing them lighter, so they can cope with more reps, and they're not going to get the same strength and power hit as somebody who's doing those lifts with a high level of skill and therefore a high weight. So for rep ranges, somebody with a lot of skill who's doing them fairly heavy will benefit a lot from the lower rep ranges, because they're getting that strength and power hit. Somebody who doesn't have the skill will benefit from doing more reps, so that they can build the skill and so that they can still get a training effect from them. Now, one way that I think is a really good way to build strength and skill, and also to get a really good training effect, is to use complexes. You may be doing this already, I don't know, but if you're not, definitely look at complexes, because what you can do in a complex is you can string some movements together, and those movements are training the Olympic lifts themselves, so they're training the different positions of the snatch, but they're also working the athlete hard. So they're building skill at the same time as they're accomplishing their other training goals. So an example of a complex for the snatch, say, would be deadlift the bar with a snatch grip, and then you would do a snatch right from the hip, so right from high, maybe power snatch an overhead squat to sit in and get that range, bring the bar down, slide it down to the knee, do another power snatch overhead squat, bring the bar down, slide it down to mid shin, do a snatch or power snatch overhead squat, and then leave it there, or do one from the floor. So that's one complex that's got 3 different snatches in it, and you could do, say, 3 to 5 of those, and you're getting a lot of reps in, you're getting the skill practice, you're getting the you know, the motor patterns, the proprioceptive control, but the, you know, the athlete's also training, and they're getting a bit of a metabolic hit, they're getting a bit of grip training because they're holding onto the bar for a longer time, and they're getting some strength and power out of that as well. So give complexes a go. I've got a video, I'll send you a video that I've got with two of my favourite complexes on, and they're a combination of Olympic lifts and normal gym lifts, and they're pretty good, and you can either do them with higher reps for more of a metabolic hit, or you can do singles with quite a heavy weight for more strength and power training. So give that a go with your athletes. Sorry guys, quick change of memory card there. So next question is from Joanne. Joanne says, do you think one of the things that women have to manage is the self-belief that they can take part in strength training as a sport? I presume men will also have some of this going on, but if we were to be generic, do women psych themselves out of it and have to work harder on that element in order to boss the bar? Yes, a lot of women do psych themselves out of training sometimes, especially when the weight's heavy. Men do too. And it's something that I talk about a lot in my events and my courses, and it does resonate with a lot of people. You know, people come up to me afterwards and say, oh, you know, that stuff was really useful. So I know that people are feeling it, and they can't necessarily talk to many other people about it. So yeah, it's a big issue. It's something that I deal with in dedicated kind of seminars on mindset, because it's such a big topic, and you know, I talk for like an hour and a half on this topic. But what I would say to you just really quickly, if you're struggling in this area, is that you need to approach mind training or mindset training in the same way as you approach your physical training. You know, you need to practice new ways of thinking and do them consistently every time until they bed in. There isn't just, you know, one thing that can be said that will change everything. And if you don't try and do anything yourself, you're not going to be able to walk into the gym and do anything different from what you did yesterday. Just as if if you don't do any training, you're not going to be able to lift a heavier weight. So approach it as a project, approach it as something that can be improved with practice, because it can. And look at 3 areas. First of all, don't beat yourself up about things. You know, women in particular are really bad at beating themselves up about everything, you know, and going, oh, I'm so terrible, or, you know, I can't do this, I'm so rubbish. Don't beat yourself up. It's a bit of a cop-out. It's not true, and it's not doing you any favours. So try and be positive about everything you do. You know, see the glass half full. See the positives that you did. You know, see the things that were different. You may have still failed a weight, but did you fail it better? You know, did you get it further than you did last time? Was your attitude better? So always take the positives and always take the learning from every single session, every single lift that you do, and you'll find that this will start to change your whole approach to strength training. Secondly, learn. You've got to learn from what you do. You have to take those lessons and you have to use them. Again, you can't, if something goes wrong, you can't just go, oh, I was shit, I was crap, you know, and go away feeling sorry for yourself. You know, what went wrong? What exactly went wrong? Was there a technique issue? You know, did your form break down? Can you work on that? Can you do another exercise to strengthen it? You know, learn and apply. And the third thing is, you've got to take responsibility for the way that you're feeling and the way that you're behaving, and take a no excuses approach. No one else is going to do it for you. Really, I mean, if you have a coach or a trainer and they are supportive, then that's great, but you know, ultimately you have to do this yourself. You have to take responsibility. If you're feeling bad, if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling like you can't do it, that is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to change that. It's your responsibility to work on it. It is not your responsibility to lift a particular weight. You know, and usually that's where people get led astray, because they'll look at, you know, somebody else, I don't know, deadlifting 80 kilos and think, oh, I must deadlift 80 kilos because she's done it. And they kind of focus on that instead of focusing on, you know, I must lift well, I need to have a good attitude, I need to have good technique, I need to work on my strength, I need to be consistent in the gym, you know, all of these things. Focus on the things you can actually do, not things that you may or may not do in the future. So I hope that helps, and I'll be doing more mindset work in the future, so keep an eye out for that, because I know it's something that people will really appreciate. But thanks for the question. Okay, moving on. Beverly asks, when training for a strength event consisting predominantly of outdoor manoeuvres like tire flips, if most of my weekday training is limited to the gym, what advice would you offer? Well, Beverly, it's actually really common for people doing strongman to do just one events day at the weekend, and then the rest of their training during the week in the gym is just like normal strength training. Mainly because until quite recently most gyms didn't have any strongman equipment at all, so you'd have to go and do your events at the weekend. You might have to travel quite a long way to go and do your events, so that was really common, and it seemed to work quite well for most strongman. So there's no problem with doing your strength training in the gym, doing your kind of powerlifting type movements, so you know, your deadlifts, your squats, your presses, working on a bit of skill. So for example, power clean, because that power clean movement is really important in strongman these days, for events like log clean and press, axle clean and press. You know, even tire flips have an element of explosive hip extension in them. General strengthening, prehab, you know, look after your shoulders, look after your hips, your posterior chain, your lower back. You know, there's lots that you can be doing in the gym that's really, really useful. And then do your events at the weekend, and if you start soon enough, you'll have plenty of opportunity to get practice at the event. So find a training group or a good gym that runs a strongman session on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning and get involved, and you should be fine. So good luck with that. Okay, Keelan asks about increasing flexibility, how long and when to stretch. She says, I see a lot of conflicting information on fitness sites about when to stretch, what kind and how long for. Any resources, rules of thumb or tips welcome. Yes, the information out there on stretching is really confusing, and that's because the research into kind of stretching and recovery is sort of ongoing, and different bits of research keep coming out saying slightly different things, and there's a lot of different philosophies out there. So it's a tricky one to answer definitively, but basically here are the kind of takeaways. I think before training you should do a dynamic warm-up, so it's not really stretching, it's moving through range of motion with very, very light loads or no load at all. So when I say light loads, I'm talking about using a band or a stick, but mobilizing mobility routines warm you up, get you moving through the right ranges, but no actual static stretching, because stretching makes you weaker. If you stretch a muscle, it will not be able to produce as much force as before, so you definitely don't want to do any static stretching before strength training unless you want to be weaker. After training is a slightly different story. I tend to apply stretching kind of as needed, so if somebody doesn't appear to need any flexibility, I don't particularly get them to stretch, but if they do have areas that would seem to need to be more flexible, then I'll get them to stretch off a little bit. And there are some muscles that have a tendency to become much tighter than other muscles, so stretching can help that. In terms of how long to hold stretches for, there's no maximum, I don't think. I mean, dancers hold stretches for hours and hours and hours, I think, but there probably is a minimum, you know, so just I think the general minimum is that sort of 20 seconds, 30 seconds range for increasing flexibility. Any shorter than that and you probably don't get the full effect. So dynamic warm-up before training, and if you want to do any stretching, do it after training, and those are my rules of thumb, so good luck with those. Okay, last question. Last question from Dawn, and this is a good one. She says, any tips on getting under the bar on heavy cleans? I tend to chicken out as soon as I'm getting near my max, and my body wants to stand up, not drop, so I end up with an ugly power clean. Good question, Dawn. You basically identified the issue there in your question, because you said you tend to chicken out, which shows that it's a mindset, it's a mental issue, first of all, that's turning into a technique issue. So your number one priority needs to be to address your mindset when you approach a heavy clean, because your body's backing out of it because your body doesn't want to get under the bar. So if you're in that situation, it's just similar to what I was saying before in answer to Joanne's question about mindset. You're going to need to practice the right mindset, and it's not necessarily going to happen instantly, but you need to start applying the right kind of strategies and kind of self-talk to help you to feel better about those heavy cleans. And what it is, it's you're lacking self-belief. Like you don't really think that you can make that weight, so your body's running away from it because you don't want to get under the bar. So you need to start building up your confidence and building up the belief that you can lift these weights. And you can do that by speaking to yourself very positively and looking, into your mind for evidence that you can do these weights. And then the other thing is to get comfortable with heavier weights. So I'm talking about in exercises like the front squat. So the more comfortable you can be with weights that are heavier than the weights that you want to clean, the more confident you're going to be that you can clean them. So for example, let's say you want to clean 60 kilos, you're struggling with 60 kilos. Now if you can front squat 75, 80 kilos well, then you can tell yourself, look, I'm really, really comfortable with 75 kilos. I know I can hold it here. I know I can stand up with it. Therefore, I know that I can clean 60 kilos. Your brain's going to believe you because it's got evidence that you're strong enough to do that 60 kilo clean. So you can use that to fuel your confidence and fuel your belief that you can do the 60 kilos. And the second thing, so you're fueling confidence, fueling self-belief, talking to yourself positively. And the other thing is to really focus in on your technique, because well, A, technique's important, but B, it helps to get rid of the chatter and the kind of negative stuff that creeps in if you focus just on your technique and what you actually need to do physically to make that clean, whatever that weight is. So you said in your question that your body doesn't want to drop under the bar. So your body's not willing to drop the hips and receive the bar. So you can do drills and exercises to work on that aspect of your lift and really focus in on the cues that you need to give your body in order to make you drop down into that squat and just feel comfortable there. So 2 tactics: focus on your mindset, build the belief that you can do these weights and give yourself evidence that you're strong enough to do them, and think about the technique. Focus on the technique. So don't focus on whether you're going to get the lift or not, just focus on what you need to do, and those 2 things together should help you to overcome your fears and lift a little bit heavier. So good luck. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you get any PBs in the near future. Okay, well that wraps it up for our questions today. Thank you so much for all those questions. They were great, a nice variety. So I hope you enjoyed the answers, and we'll do this again sometime. So bye for now.